Robert, what led you to enter the field of testosterone after so many years in medicine?
I will say something very cheesy. I wanted to make a difference. And that's 100% true. I've been a medical doctor for 20 plus years in the NHS. It was disillusioning, disenchanting, just being a cog in a broken machine. Um, and testosterone deficiency was a field of medicine that wasn't being adequately addressed, and the treatment wasn't efficient and effective. And through an evolution of practice, obviously we've developed this microdosing TRT model, but it was with the goal of just actually doing what I wanted to do from the start, is actually make a difference to the outcomes of the person in front of me. Not ticking boxes, actually affecting a positive change to both the physical and psychological health of you.
Mm. And you've obviously got the men's health clinic now. Were you working in that sort of area then within the NHS before you and saw a sort of gap that you wanted to fill?
Yeah, no. Essentially, I was going to be a career surgeon. So I did my basic surgical training and realized that they don't give a shit about you. They give a shit about what's wrong and whether they can correct it. And I wanted to help the person. Then I went to GP land because that was about the person. And then I realized that literally I was just ticking boxes. I had 10 minutes, often 7 minutes, to see a patient to address their concerns, their ideas, concerns, expectations. It was unrealistic, and it was utterly exhausting. So I'd finish the day, and I'd have no idea whether I'd positively affected a change to anybody, and
Mm.
it became utterly exhausting. And came across testosterone deficiency kind of rather weirdly through watching the UFC. So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, testosterone has nothing to do with performance enhancing drugs, but these guys were all getting popped for steroids. Obviously, they were absolutely jacked, and they'd come back on these therapeutic use exemptions, and it was like testosterone, so testosterone replacement therapy. You don't get taught about this stuff at medical school. You don't hear about it in postgraduate training. So I was like, okay, testosterone deficiency. So I started researching it, came across like Dr. Leaf, the Vegas guy.
Okay.
There's this jacked 62-year-old on testosterone and human growth hormone. And I was thinking, okay, he looks pretty healthy, but not to the extreme. And then kind of did some research, looked at what was currently available and what was going on in the States, and thinking, all right, I think I can change this. And yeah, it just snowballed from there, really.
Yeah, I can see why that experience in the NHS and that sort of quick one in, one out sort of way of working that GPs tend to have could really affect you in terms of not understanding. I suppose what we do in life is to help other people, right? And especially in what you're doing. So to get to the end of the day and not even know if you've done that, yeah, that must have been tough.
Being a doctor is difficult because, again, you're only really concerned with the person that's not well. Okay,
Mm.
with 4,000 plus patients under our care and supervision, 3,990 are absolutely flying, and it's like they're living life, they're living their best life because they've had the guidance, they've been through the process, they've trusted the process, and they're coming out the other side understanding they need to keep work to feel good. But you're only really bothered about those 10 patients who aren't well. In GP land, they're all not well because they're all coming to see you for a reason, and they want you to cure them. And it's like, how do you instill that positive mindset to go, right, okay, well, we can do this, but you need to do this in 10 minutes? You can't. So you're essentially firefighting. And it's utterly kind of soul destroying to think that, that's it.
Mm.
I just needed more.
Yeah.
I was thinking, if I spent the next 20 years in general practice, um, yeah, I'd be either an alcoholic, drug addict, womanizing, all of the negative things that,
All the bad things.
all the bad things that, it's all about being that well balanced person, and you can't affect a positive change in 10 minutes.
Mm. And I suppose it's that change from being reactive to being proactive. And I think we're still in that stage where we're reacting to things once it's happened. And like you can see with what you're doing now is trying to take it to the before there's a problem and trying to fix it then.
Yeah, I mean, it's a curative model, isn't it? So we talk about prevention over cure, but what does that actually mean? Because the whole medical industry is about curing something. It's about giving you a tablet to cure it, to then allow you to continue the bad habits that got you in there in the first place. There's no real health promotion, and unfortunately, all the research is pretty much dictated by the pharmaceutical companies because they've got the cash. So it's all have a statin. It's like have this blood pressure medication, not reduce your stress, improve your sleep, improve your nutrition, improve your exercise, improve your mindset. It's like, have this tablet. So the best patients are the patients that come here and say, how can you help me help myself?
Mm.
So, we give them the testosterone replacement therapy. We titrate their dose according to response to get them to healthy hormone levels. But we instill in them the fact that you've got to look at your sleep, you've got to look at your nutrition, got to look at your exercise, look at your mindset, and understand the process. It's this never ever evolving journey, and
Mm.
anything that you put in, you'll reap the rewards now that you've got healthy testosterone levels. So
Mm.
it's been utterly inspirational. It's been super challenging, but
Yeah.
utterly inspirational. And yeah, I'm so glad that this is my job, my career. It's like my reason for life, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome. So turning the conversation towards testosterone then. So how common is low testosterone in men? Do we have a number for it?
Uh, I hate this question because there's some data to suggest 1 in 4 patients, people over 40, has low testosterone. You have some data to say that your testosterone level drops by 1% every year after the age of 30. Data's only as robust as the data. And again, you look at sort of critical reading and the evidence and go, this paper says this. Okay, well let's replicate it numerous times. Let's try and disprove it. When it comes to testosterone deficiency, um, we don't know. If you want to diagnose testosterone deficiency, I would always say it's a diagnosis of exclusion. So, you'll have these online companies going, congratulations, you qualify for TRT. It's like, well, do I need TRT? Well, it doesn't matter because I can give you TRT and then you can feel magically better. So
Mm.
what we try and do is we try and not put you on testosterone replacement therapy. It's like paradoxical. So I'm a private clinic and I make a lot of money out of testosterone replacement therapy. But if you go on it and you don't need it and you haven't addressed the other things that you could address and there are reversible causes, it's pointless. It'll get your
Mm.
levels back up to where they should be, but you haven't addressed the fundamentals. And it says the point you made earlier, it's going back to the foundations, it's going back to the fundamentals to then affect a sustainable change. So the data's rubbish, frankly. And yeah, it's really about taking personal responsibility for your own health. And if you get a low testosterone, what can you do to raise it so that you don't need testosterone replacement therapy? Because often it is address your sleep, your
Mm.
stress, your nutrition, your exercise, and work to not need it. But if you need it, it's utterly transformatory and it can be life changing. And in fact, way too often it's life saving, which is kind of very scary.
Yeah. And in terms of maybe people thinking about finding out what their testosterone levels are, obviously blood work is sort of the way to do that. At what point in people's lives would you say they should start? Should they be doing it yearly, or how does that work?
Again, this is a difficult one because I would say yes yearly, just to give you a benchmark for how you're getting on. Because again, what you shouldn't be doing is just measuring testosterone because testosterone deficiency is the end result of a lot of things. So testosterone affects everything, and everything affects everything. So you have to have that holistic approach. So don't test your testosterone in isolation every year. If you're going to do it properly and do a comprehensive blood screen that looks at your full blood count, looks at your blood glucose, your HbA1c, looks at your lipid profile, looks at your thyroid function. Because again, you have to have that holistic approach. So again, with human beings, we tend to focus on one thing. We're tunnel vision, especially as men, because we
Mm.
have that strong relationship with dopamine because of testosterone. So it's like, I'm going to focus on that. But it has to be a holistic approach because testosterone is the end result of a lot of things. So if you spot your testosterone is low, what are you going to do with that? Well, I need to jump on TRT. But if you tested your thyroid as well, you go, well, actually, my thyroid needs optimizing, and that's a lot cheaper and a lot easier than jumping on testosterone replacement therapy. And there's that flippancy applied to it. But again, it's wonderful that they're raising awareness, but they're doing it in the wrong way, and they make that it's all sell out there in on the internet about these
Yeah.
massive blood screens. Do a comprehensive screen because it gives you more information, and with that information is obviously power to affect a change to you, not just focus on testosterone.
Yeah. I suppose it's looking at it almost like through a telescope. You're focusing in just on testosterone, but you're not looking at the bigger picture. So by zooming out and, like say, doing a fully comprehensive test, you might notice that there's a couple of other things that might be affecting it. And like you say, are cheaper and easier to affect than your testosterone.
You're missing that big fucking comet that's coming down as you're focusing on the moon. It's like,
Yeah.
hold on, you need to look at everything.
Yeah. 100%. And in terms of how low testosterone presents itself, what are some of the common signs and symptoms that we might see in people?
I'll give you that's. We'll start with the most important one. That's mood. Okay,
Hmm.
so whether that be low or anxiety. Probably the second most common stroke important one's tiredness. And then you've got brain fog, and then you've got low libido, and then the physical things. It's a constellation of symptoms. So can you have low testosterone with healthy libido? Yeah, you can, because again, testosterone affects everything. So perhaps the best way of describing low testosterone is you're putting the work in, but you're not seeing the reward. You don't feel like your old self. Now, your old self is your old self. So when you're 16, you're young, dumb, and full of you don't have a care in the world. And when you're sort of 30, you have responsibilities. So the weight of the world's crushing your spirit. But you can just shifting that mindset to go right. I'm doing everything right. My sleep's good. My stress is proportional to the situation. I'm eating right. I'm training right. But this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel as if this is me. And again, one of the psychological symptoms that people present with is this depersonalization. And again, it's the feeling of being present but not present. And again, you should be fully engaged in the moment. And again, if you're not feeling like that, then it may be low testosterone.
Yeah. And you mentioned a few ways earlier that you sort of said four sort of ways that we can, or four things we can look at if we are suffering. How does our lifestyle impact it? You've sort of touched on it a bit, but can we delve into each of those things? And
Yeah, huge. Yeah, listen, crazy. Um, Fundamentally, we're animals, so we should be surviving. And what would an animal do in the morning? It would hunt to get the food, which is the reward, to then take it back to the tribe to obviously have some rest, hopefully a bit of nookie, and then sleep, repeat. Day, night, day, night, day, night. So we're the proverbial hunter. Now we've reached a place of safety, which is kind of the goal. But paradoxically, that's led to our demise because we need to survive, and our instincts, our drives are there all to survive. So, as we said earlier, testosterone has that relationship with dopamine. Why does it have that relationship with dopamine? So, dopamine is the reward neurotransmitter. So, what does that mean? Well, that means essentially the testosterone's kind of rewarding you for activity to again move forwards. And we lead these incredibly sedentary lives, typing on the computer, psychological stress, 4,000 patients. It's hard work. So you have to find ways of coping with it. And again, what do most people do? Well, they comfort eat, so you get comfort from eating. So you switch from this kind of like sympathetic, kind of active state to a calm parasympathetic state. So whilst you should be doing that through breath, humans, because obviously I've been told to eat that food and just move a move a little bit more by Nike, and it'll be okay. Doesn't work like that. So the comfort eating gives you the comfort that you're seeking, but then obviously you're eating in excess, which means that your physiology is dysregulated, which means that you again don't have the energy, don't have the motivation to do the things that you should be doing, and that's hardship. We should be putting ourselves through hardship to earn our reward, which is food, and we're eating what we want, not what we need. And if
Mm.
you eat what you need, not what you want, and you see the benefits, you'll eat what you need.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose it's putting controlling the resistance you have in your life in a positive way and having like a positive amount of stress, but not letting that control you in reverse, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, you can't escape the psychological stress. I mean, we should all be hunter gatherers. We should all go and live in the country with the missus and the Labrador and two kids and grow our own veg and hunt our own animals. It's not realistic, is it? So we have to make sense of the madness, and just apply principles, not rules, to what we're doing, and apply those principles on a daily basis as opposed to saving up for the weekend. So again, concentrating on trying to counterbalance that psychological stress with physical stress, because we're physical beings, and you're releasing the same neurotransmitters and hormones with physical stress as with psychological stress, but not physical. So essentially, you break yourself down. It's just understanding those principles and then working on the calming part of the nervous system, that parasympathetic nervous system. So again, most humans comfy because you don't know any better. But there's things like breath work and grounding and just going out into nature. you know, I've never seen an unhappy hiker because there's purpose and you're in nature. And
Mm.
it's wonderful when you go out into nature and your mental health will improve.
Yeah, 100%. And I really like what you said in there. You said about principles, not rules. I think that's such a good little 3 words because how often do we see it? We give ourselves the rules of what we have to eat, how often we have to exercise, especially say after New Year, we go into these New Year's habits. We give ourselves these rules, right? I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week. As soon as you drop one, it gets into your own head. So understanding the principle that you need to exercise and accepting that it's not a set number, I suppose.
I think perversely we're very self-destructive. I know I am.
Mm.
When everything's going right, I'll screw it up. And whether that's voluntary or involuntary, I think our nature is such that we almost want to face hardship. So when everything's absolutely flying, I'm just super conscious that I'm going to screw something up if I take my foot off the gas. And I will always take my foot off the gas because, again, I'm a human being. I'm flawed and I'm
Yeah.
surrounded by plenty. And it's like, well, why don't I just take that as opposed to burn it? And again, I think it's been a wonderful evolution of not only practice at the clinic, but an evolution of thought. So again, I've had the privilege of 4,000 plus patients sat in front of me, and they've told me their stories, and we've supported them over the years, and we've witnessed the transformations. And it's hardship, hardship, hardship. But yeah, I've had a tough year, and it's like, yeah, it's kind of supposed to be tough, but do you know what? I'm coping better on TRT than I would be pre-TRT.
Yeah.
Just understanding that life isn't supposed to be easy. Life is supposed to be hard, and you're supposed to find pleasure in the smallest things, not the big things. The smallest things. The fucking the sun's out.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's cold. No, it's not. It's fresh. And again, it's all perspective, isn't it? You can turn a negative into a positive by just changing that mindset, by understanding a little bit about yourself and not necessarily that kind of material kind of world nonsense that we're subjected to and believe that we should be complicit in.
Yeah. And I've spoken to a lot of guests about the idea of sort of reframing things and exactly what you just said there. It's how we look at things and find the positives in those small things. That is exactly it. So,
There's an
um,
interesting, sorry,
sorry.
just to make a point. It's like patients with terminal cancer. It's like that's obviously utterly heartbreaking and catastrophic, but they often have a wonderful perspective because they're forced to have a wonderful perspective because they've
Mm.
realized their mortality. And again, it's that Mark Twain quote, isn't it? The two most important days of your life. And I think it's that. It's just that understanding that you need to live in the moment, and every decision that you make, you're creating your future, and just
Yeah.
having that kind of. And again, human beings, we're completely messed up, but we should always be trying to be better.
One of the questions that I've got around testosterone specifically again is when you look at how it's measured, you have total testosterone and free testosterone. Could you explain the difference between that and how that works?
Yeah, I mean, it's reasonably self-explanatory from the fact total testosterone is all of your testosterone, and free testosterone. Well, what's that? So that's essentially your bioavailable testosterone. So that's your usable testosterone. I would say in inverted commas, your feel-good testosterone. It's not as simple as that, but very basically, that's what it is, and that's pretty much influenced or impacted by a glycoprotein that gets produced by the liver called sex hormone binding globulin. It's not as sexy as it sounds, but it essentially acts as a buffer, and it goes. It's a positive protein, and it goes up in stress states. Which again,
Mm,
do I want stress? I don't want stress. Yeah, you do want stress states because stress states actually, if they're short lived, make you healthier.
mm,
It's like autophagy. It's like the self cleaning process that happens to make you more effective in a stress state. It doesn't happen in a comfort state. So again, everybody focuses on total testosterone within the traditional healthcare model, but free testosterone is far more important for how you feel and the fact that it's not quite as simple as that. But kind of it that's the sort of usable testosterone.
okay. And when we look at our testosterone, they both, I know you said it might be more important, but are we looking at both those numbers when we determine what low testosterone is?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at everything always, aren't you? But I mean, simply looking at the hormone profile, you look at the total testosterone and the free testosterone, but the the SHBG is the most fascinating part of those those three parameters.
Mm,
It's also impacted by albumin, but that's a bit boring and it's not really relevant. But the sex hormone binding globulin is perhaps the most important, most interesting marker because that can you can modulate that sometimes typically to free up more testosterone to get you into more healthy levels. And again, that's the reason why you need to speak to someone that knows what they're doing,
mm,
because you'll speak to those online companies, and they'll say your total testosterone is this, your free testosterone is that. Again, you qualify for TRT, so let's jump on testosterone. Whereas we should always be looking not to need it. And again,
yeah.
you only really truly benefit from it if you actually need it.
Yeah. And when we say we obviously don't always need it, it's a big commitment, isn't it? Is it a life, is it the rest of your life sort of commitment?
Yeah, it's so again, why would you go on testosterone replacement therapy unless you needed it? Because you need it. So there's a chronicity to testosterone. So the reason why we do two blood tests is to demonstrate chronicity. So say you had an intercurrent illness, you had a bad night's sleep, you didn't do the blood test in a fasted state, you might have an erroneously low level. But you just shouldn't jump on testosterone just because you've got one low level. You should want to know that actually over the last 4 weeks, from finding out I had a slightly low level, I've done all the right things. And it's weird to have to say this, that you should look after your stress, your sleep, your nutrition, your exercise, and your mindset. So I've done all the right things. I've taken the vitamin D that the doc recommended. I've addressed my sleep. And the second blood test is shit. Nothing's happened. Yeah, I feel rubbish. Yeah, testosterone
Mm,
is in your best interest. But if you go, actually, well, hold on, my levels have improved and I'm starting to feel better. It's like, well, do you need testosterone? Well, no, surely not. So just again, that's the reason for screening is that you go, well, actually, let's see if we can build on this and keep a nice healthy testosterone, keep feeling good, and then review it if we need to review it in the future.
yeah, it's definitely the right approach to it. And it's quite alarming hearing how some of the online companies are working and just getting people straight on it, which they may, yeah, it's all money, isn't it? I
Yeah,
suppose.
of course.
And these people not really understanding the full commitment that they're making. Um, Andropause is a word that's been used quite a lot by the media. Yeah, I can see you doing this side already.
Yeah.
Is it a real thing?
No, it's nonsense. So menopause is a defined moment in a woman's timeline where she stops ovulating. So it's cessation of of periods.
Mm.
Andropause, no such thing happens. So there's no moment in a man's timeline where it says, well, you're going to have low testosterone now. And again, that stupid statistic about when you're over 30, your testosterone level drops by 1%. Um, Testosterone deficiency is a big, serious thing. And there are pathologies that can cause testosterone deficiency. But there's no such thing as andropause. Yeah, it's garbage.
Yeah, I suppose with men, low testosterone can happen at any age. It's not a set thing, and it may not happen, obviously.
Well, listen, I'll tell you something scary. We have 18, 19-year-olds approach clinic with low testosterone. And, you put them through the paces. You obviously look at everything and, you try and put them off testosterone. And then what I've seen a few of these guys in clinic and they're like boys. And
Mm,
they go, right, okay. So they go on testosterone replacement therapy, and then like a year later, they walk in with a shoulders back and a different aura about them, and have an increased confidence. Like, okay, so that was the right thing to do because you had clinically low testosterone levels, but damn, you're 18 years old. This is weird, and you haven't
mm,
done anything wrong. There's no pathology. So you go on testosterone and go, okay, so now you're normal and yeah, you're a healthy human being. Wonderful. So why are these guys at 18 got testosterone deficiency? And
yeah.
it's to do with epigenetics. So, you have your genetics and then you have the environment. And as we said before, we're not living in the environment that we should be living in. So we live in this perverse world. And the epigenetics and the fact that, we've got women peeing the contraceptive pill down the toilet poisons them, and let alone poisoning us. The cattle are being fed estradiol constantly to keep them lactating. There are plastics everywhere. It's non-stick frying pans. We live in a poisonous world. So it's incredibly worrying that we have 18, 19-year-olds sometimes approach clinic. And again,
Mm.
it's not a flippant decision. So again, do everything that you can do to not need testosterone. That you shouldn't apply this flippancy of, well, will I qualify? So here we go. Let's jump on.
Yeah. And in your time working in this sort of area, have you seen more younger men come forward? I suppose where we had sort of COVID, people more like a lot
COVID's huge.
more locked in and then working from home and stuff. Has that affected people?
Yeah, totally. COVID's had a catastrophic effect on both physical and psychological well-being. Let's go down that rabbit hole if you want.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So, yeah, no, that's utterly horrendous. Yeah.
And again, I suppose that goes back to the being sedentary more often than where we spoke about earlier, the importance of being outside and giving yourself those small stresses. Now our stress is completely different almost.
People locked up in their homes, like hamsters, rats in an experiment, and I'm pretty sure we were rats in an experiment. So
Yeah.
yeah, that has ultimately not only a very obvious negative effect on both physical and psychological well-being, but then once you start to question it and you start to do a little bit more research and you become a conspiracy nut because there's some validity to these conspiracies, you then have that discord in your brain that you can't get rid of.
Mm.
Trust the
And I,
government. Okay,
yeah.
no, you're all right, thanks.
And I suppose stuff like social media has had an effect potentially from sort of 2010. People have had social media at their fingertips on smartphones, and that's keeping people indoors more now as well. You've got stuff like Netflix. Everything in this world is just keeping us in and keeping us more sedentary, isn't it?
I think the crazy thing is the internet has been incredible for in certain aspects and areas, but there's equal amount of information and misinformation. And then if you have a government and a NHS that you don't trust, your natural bias is going to go towards what you want, obviously confirmation bias. And disappointingly, as human beings, we're always going to seek the negative as opposed to the positive.
Mm.
Um, so again, that mistrust becomes absolutely concrete, and that doesn't do us any good. I listen. I've created my bubble. My bubble's sound, and I look outside my bubble, and yeah, nobody's getting in unless I want them to come in.
I think that's a good way to run it. In terms of mood and mental health, you mentioned it again earlier, and we've sort of glazed over it a few times. At the moment, 3 out of 4 suicides are men. It's really poor statistics. I've spoken to many experts around sort of men's mental health and suicide on this show. And how does that link into low testosterone? Should that be considered as a potential reason why before being sort of put on these antidepressants?
Hell yes. Listen, firstly, antidepressants don't work because men are testosterone dominant, which means we're dopamine dominant. So you give an SSRI, which is a selective serotonin receptor inhibitor, which means raising serotonin. That has more to do with estradiol. So how does that make sense? Because we're testosterone dominant, so we want dopamine. So our depression tends to come more from, guess what? Testosterone deficiency, which is the end result of a whole load of things.
Mm.
Um, yeah, the mental health thing is huge. Remember this phrase: you cannot outthink your physiology. Okay, so all the talking therapies in the world, all the positive mindset, inspirational stuff that should be good, isn't going to affect somebody, isn't going to positively affect somebody with low testosterone, with clinically low testosterone, isn't going to positively impact somebody with a dysregulated thyroid. You cannot outthink your physiology. So if you think about the relationship between physiology and psychology, it's bi-directional, isn't it?
Mm.
But again, physiology is fundamentally how your body functions, and we're a big bag of chemicals. Okay, if those chemicals don't have the foundation, you you will not get better. And again, when we think about mental health, don't we? We think about what's the cure? There's no cure because we've all got mental health. Okay, and it's again, it's seeing the positive as opposed to the negative. And I think the problem is we've got lots of virtue signaling on the internet, and people being labeled as being depressed and people being labeled as being anxious. And like depression and anxiety is a symptom of something, whether that's dysregulated physiology, whether that's your current life, whether that's past experiences. We need to be, again, having a real proper rethink about how we look at mental health issues, because we've all got mental health problems, if
Mm.
if we want to see them as problems. Now, you do have pathologies, obviously, but the vast majority of people with depression and anxiety need to take a step back and understand that, again, at your core, you are an animal. Again, consciousness disappointingly adds a weird complexity to what should be the human experience. Ultimately, it's down to you what you do with that. And again, as you know, I'm a massive fan of Carl Jung and Nietzsche and Alan Watts and, weirdly Bill Hicks, who was a comedian. And again, it's just regaining that perspective. Once you've got that solid base of how your body functions, and it starts with hormones.
Yeah, yeah, definitely remembering that it's bi-directional. A lot of the time we look at, like you said, mental health and we think, how are we going to treat the mind? But really, how can we treat the body to then impact the mind as well? And you spoke about labels and the idea that we say, I am depressed or I am anxious,
There you go.
that puts a finality on it. You can't get out of that. Whereas if you say, I'm feeling depression at the moment or I'm feeling
Yeah.
anxiety, it doesn't become you. And I think there's a big difference. And it just goes back to that reframing of what we spoke to before as well.
I mean, social media is utter poison. And I put a comment on one of these mental health sites, and some guy goes, "Well, actually, no, it's empowering." And then I work in mental health, and it's like, oh, mate, I couldn't give two shits what you're saying, because I do have quite a deep understanding of this, but I understand that an argument on the internet is never going to result in a positive outcome. So I did reply because, again, my ego got involved. But I mean, if you label somebody, it's like, great, I'm fucking depressed. So it's like, good, I'm empowered, I'm depressed. So there's no reason to get out of that. So,
Mm.
again, we should always be striving to be better, a better version of ourselves. But if you have that reassurance, I'm depressed, it's fine. That's why I feel like this. So I'm not, there's no
Yeah.
reason for me to get out of it. And again, work, 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 work.
Yeah. It's an excuse to stay where you are, I suppose, in that moment.
I mean, it's perverse, isn't it?
Mm.
You see so many kids, teenagers being diagnosed with anxiety and depression, and fundamentally is due to social media. But again, when I was 18, I was an idiot. So I was doing all sorts, and perhaps I was questioning life and questioning my place. And I was thinking, right, well, what do I want to do? I
Mm,
didn't go, oh, thank God I'm depressed. I don't do anything
yeah.
now. It's like, you know, God, you've got 60 years of your life. Is that how you want to be remembered? Is that your legacy? Oh, little Johnny was depressed, and he was depressed for the rest of his life. It's like, well, fucking no, I want to be, you know, the best version of myself. It sounds terribly cliched, and it's like a bit cringy saying it, but get on with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It shouldn't be cliche or cringy to say that. That should be, like you say, that's just what we should be striving for, surely.
But it's taking that level of personal responsibility and accountability, and I think those sorts of diagnoses that are applied to somebody inappropriately, again, it absolves them of that responsibility and accountability. And fundamentally, your journey is down to you, nobody else.
Mm,
You, if you stay that way, people get bored because nobody wants to be around somebody like that. So
mm.
ultimately, you've got to go, what? How do I get myself out of it?
Yeah. Well, it's the name of this podcast, The Lonely Chapter. I don't know if you're familiar with that idea by Chris Williamson, Alex Hormozy. It's the idea that as you begin to make self improvement decisions, you start to build new habits, better habits to better yourself, you start to lose touch with the people around you. And if they're not coming along with you for the journey, you enter that lonely chapter where you're not quite developed enough to be around who you want to sort of be around, but you're also starting to leave people behind. So that's the lonely chapter. And it's essentially what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, you should always be searching, always be striving for something different.
Mm,
Again, if you're complacent about anything, it's all going to screw up. Because
yeah.
by the very nature of the fact you're not evolving, you're not evolving. So it's like,
Yeah. Let's drill down a bit more into TRT then. So obviously this is where your clinic specializes. Can you start to explain what exactly TRT is for anyone who doesn't know?
testosterone replacement therapy. So obviously, what you're doing is you're correcting a confirmed deficiency. So what should happen is you should be titrating your dose according to response. So we're trying to get you to where you need to be. Okay, so obviously everybody's physiology is very similar, but it's also very slightly different. So you may feel best with a testosterone of 30, I may feel best with a testosterone of 25. So there's a bit of biological individuality to this. Um, but all it is normalization of your testosterone levels, nothing more, nothing less. So obviously, as a patient, you want to reverse the negative symptoms that you presented with. Now, I'm anxious. Okay, so what do we do? Well, we normalize your testosterone levels. I'm still a little bit anxious. Well, okay, is that not unusual? That's not unreasonable. We live in a weird world. Again, the premise behind it is just to normalize testosterone levels to allow you to put work in to address all the other areas that you should be addressing on a daily basis. And that's literally it. We're not looking at jacking you up to super physiological levels because super physiological, I can't say that three times really fast. It's like, if you go higher than normal, you're higher than normal, and your body survives on the concept of balance. And to achieve balance, you need contrast. So it's essentially the principles of yin yang.
And I mean, a lot of people may have heard of TRT maybe in a bad way in terms of the misconceptions around TRT. So, especially maybe in the bodybuilding world, it gets sort of blurred in with
Or
steroids.
TRT.
Yeah. So what are the sort of common misconceptions that you come up against
Well, I
with
think
it?
that's it, isn't it? So it's the disappointing association with performance enhancing drugs. Testosterone is an anabolic hormone, so growth and repair. So obviously, an extension from that is performance enhancement. But if ever you dysregulate physiology, you dysregulate physiology. You cannot cheat physiology. So if you raise your levels above normal, then there will be negative consequences as a result of raising above normal. So I think steroids is the big one because we're never going to remove that association because it's there, it's concrete. But what we want to do is we want to be promoting normality. And again, that's going to come through presenting realism as opposed to unrealistic nonsense from not only the bodybuilding community, but also again these online companies. The online companies had an 87% increase in sporting ability. How do you what? How do you measure?
Yeah.
What? It's like,
It's very vague.
but they're preying on the weak, aren't they? And when you've
Yeah.
got low testosterone, some of these guys are in really dire states. So, oh, a quick fix, and we're pre-programmed to go to the quick fix, aren't we?
Mm.
And again, I think therein lies the problem. We've got information and misinformation in equal balance, and when you're struggling, you're going to go to the path of least resistance.
Mm. Yeah, and I think again, like you said, the social media and fitness industry within that has got to take some of the blame in areas because you see so many young guys getting on like steroids and stuff early doors as well. And I've seen people, I'm pretty sure I saw like a 15-year-old who was on it or something. And it's just incredible. Like
Mm.
to even before your body's finished sort of building to that sort of adult state. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done within that, I suppose.
Listen,
But
I'm fine with it because it's good for business. It's like,
yeah.
oh, listen, we've got no shortage of patients in the future. It's insane, isn't it? I mean, yeah, as you say, 16, 17 year olds banging in gear. You've got Sam Sulek, and it's like
Mm,
these guys that people aspire to be like, and it's like, why?
yeah.
Look at the damage. I mean, if you're bigger than you should be, you're bigger than you should be, and ultimately you will pay the price.
Mm. You've got this move now as well from where before you had a lot of people who were obviously taking stuff and weren't saying it or weren't admitting it. But you've now got people who are taking it and admitting it, and it's almost being idolized. And like, oh, how brave of you to talk about that.
Oh yeah, it's being normalized, and I think obviously information is power, and as autonomous human beings, we should be able to make our own decisions. Um, but what they don't see are the downsides, and those guys. Listen, well, I've got some pretty high profile guys under my care, and there are some big downsides. There are lots of suicides in the bodybuilding community, and what they're going to present on the internet is this, and happy, happy, happy. We're all wearing a mask, and that mask is super prominent, super bright on social media. But what you're not seeing is the darkness behind, and you kind of get this, and then the paradox of saying, "Well, aren't you brave of fucking telling people that you're on steroids?" It's like, I kind of weep for the future, frankly, because I think the normalization of steroids is fundamentally going to cause harm.
Mm,
Obviously, I mean, this isn't rocket science.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, whilst I joke about it being good for business, I don't want to see these people. Yeah, just start making the right choices.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it goes back to the way that you treat your clients and what you spoke about earlier. And before you jump on replacement therapy, what can you do first? What lifestyle changes can you make? Sleep, eating, exercise, all of those things, mindset. Um, in terms of administering TRT, I know I've seen something that your clinic does microdosing.
Yeah.
Are there various ways for dosing it?
Um, Obviously, we only microdose because that's the most effective way of achieving stable male androgen levels and mimicking physiology. And the ultimate kind of reason for a medication outside of correcting pathology is to mimic physiology, how your body functions. So
Hmm.
it mimics that dynamics day, night, day, night, day, night, day, night. Other clinics do other protocols. I'm uninterested in what they do because I know that this is the correct way of doing it because it's through an evolution of practice that we've ended up doing this.
Yeah.
4,000 plus patients, we know it works. And again, ultimately, if you understand not only the pharmacology, but you understand physiology, you say, well, okay, well, what do I want to do? Well, I want to mimic physiology. So microdosing is logical. And my clinic, not boasting, it attracts patients from 50 different countries, over 50 different countries, even the United States.
Wow.
So with testosterone's everywhere. And again, it goes back to not only the microdosing methodology, the fact that we care about our patients and the fact that we give them the right information. And again, my noddy YouTube channel where I just talk into an iPhone, just randomly ranting about something, it demonstrates a level of realism that you don't get from social media.
Yeah.
Testosterone. If you do take testosterone, you'll do this, and it's like,
Yeah. Something relatable, isn't it?
well, it's a cell, isn't it? Everything on the internet's a cell.
Mm,
And again, perhaps you could say I've got I have got a cell, obviously, but
mm,
it's delivering the right information so that it affects a change to you, but it's also beneficial to me, obviously.
yeah. And so that microdosing is just small amounts more regularly rather than a larger amount
Yes.
less regularly.
So from a pharmacokinetic perspective, drugs have half lives. They have a Cmax, Cmin, so it gets quite complicated. But in essence, if you want stable levels, you can achieve stable levels sometimes with a slightly less intensive injection frequency, but you're not mimicking physiology. And if you think about testosterone deficiency and normalizing testosterone levels, the ultimate goal of the testosterone replacement therapy is to normalize the levels. But testosterone affects everything. So if
Mm,
your levels, say 2 days before your injection, if you do it in a less intensive injection interval, is going to be high, then that's not mimicking physiology. So,
yeah.
whilst you might have a trough level that might support healthy levels, it's not healthy, is it? Because it's healthy at the trough, not at the peak. Whereas the
Mm,
microdosing, the daily injection, by the very nature of what you're doing, is you're going to create a stable level. But by the very nature of injecting in the morning, you're going to cause a spike, which is replicating the morning spike of testosterone.
right.
So
The
again, it's the
natural, yeah,
closest
rhythm.
way of mimicking physiology.
Yeah. Yeah. And what are some of the sort of main benefits that people who are on your treatment report back to you?
Getting jacked.
Sign me up.
Yeah, it's like 19-inch arms. No, listen, it's we concentrate on psychology perversely. I've just said it's all about physical stuff, but yeah, it's the mood.
Yeah.
It's allowing people to cope with the world and allowing people to see positives when they previously saw negatives. You can't feel like your old self because you're not 16, but you can feel like you. Okay, and again,
Mm,
it's giving them that kind of zest for life back, so they can go out. I mean, our tagline is "Earn Your Reward." So
mm,
testosterone gives you the ability to earn your reward because again, that testosterone's relationship with dopamine. Ultimately, it's all down to you. Again, it's giving you back that personal responsibility and accountability to say, right, okay, go on then.
yeah. I really like that, giving the person accountability, and I think hopefully that's where medicine in general starts to go at some point in the future. But I think what you're doing in terms of that, yeah, making it proactive rather than reactive, like what we spoke about at the start, I think that's fantastic.
I had a patient. This is a few years ago now, and he sat in front of me, and it's like it's not worked. What do you mean it's not worked? And it says, "Oh, I don't feel any better." Okay. So what are you doing? I'm just waiting for it to work. What? Listen, so we had a circular conversation for like 18 months, and it was like I said just listen. I said we'd have this half an hour conversation about you know levels are great. What are you doing? You need to be doing X, Y, Z. And it was like, yeah, but I don't like exercise. I was like, and I go to bed at 3 a.m. Okay, I said, you you can't do that. She said, but I do.
Mm,
I said, well, but you want to get better. Okay, well, you have to do this. So it's an end of half an hour of a really frustrating conversation. Every single time was a frustrating conversation. And I said, do you really want to have this conversation again in 6 months' time? And he goes, yeah. I go, oh, I don't. But we will. And one
yeah.
day you might have it drummed into you to the degree that you might go, oh, doc, I've started waking up at 6 a.m. and I'm just going for a little walk around the park and just appreciating nature. Or
Mm,
it's like, but some people don't want to be helped. And I think
yeah.
you provide them with the information. It's like when patients say, I'm trying to get my mate to come and see you. And I just say, listen, just lead by example. When he says to you, what are you doing? You seem to be a lot happier, and physically you're looking better. And so then tell them, okay, well, testosterone. It's
Mm.
not something to be ashamed of. It's like, again, much like any hormone deficiency, you wouldn't worry about telling somebody that you had a abnormally low thyroid. You just go, yeah, I'm on thyroxine. Whereas
Yeah.
testosterone is, oh no, you're on testosterone replacement therapy. Are you less manly? Are you? It's like, oh, no, I just have low testosterone, mate.
Yeah.
And now it's correct, and I feel great. So there you go.
Yeah.
Enjoy your
Do,
life, mate.
do you think there is a stigma around this conversation of low testosterone for men to come forward and sort of say it out loud? Is that
Yeah, so I'm just thinking about one of my guys who's a good mate of mine. He said he'd prefer, but back in the day, he would prefer to tell people that he was on gear than testosterone replacement therapy.
wow?
Because gear, you're being naughty, aren't you? And it's like, there's
Yeah.
a bloke, it's quite cool to be naughty. And even though you're doing yourself harm, it's like, well, testosterone is making you healthier. So it's like, oh, shit, don't fucking tell anybody.
Mm.
Because that's a bit embarrassing. But again,
Yeah.
it goes back to that kind of, are you less masculine with low testosterone? I've got some pretty badass people under my care and supervision, professional athletes. We work a lot with tier one military guys.
Mm.
And I'm always amazed by how open they are about and transparent they are about their TRT. And it's like, I want the whole world to know because it's
Mm.
positively impacting my life. And again, it comes back to that saying, doesn't it? True strength comes from vulnerability. You don't understand strength unless you understand vulnerability. And again, when these guys hit that kind of, okay, I'm not invincible, and we're all invincible when we're a kid. And the reality is you were given thousands of chances to do the right thing. So
Mm.
you went out on the weekend every weekend and got blitzed. And it's like you woke up on Sunday, felt like crap. On Monday, I felt all right. Huh? So Friday, let's get on it again because I'm better. But that's your consciousness screwing with your head, and your physiologist going, "Don't do that again." But you do it again because we're all idiots.
Yeah. So we've spoken about some of the positive sort of benefits and stuff. Are there any risks or side effects that people do encounter whilst they're on TRT?
Um, okay, there's a flippancy to this comment. Healthy hormone levels. How can there be negatives to healthy hormone levels? And there's some truth to that, but that assumes that everything else in your life is on point. So I'll give you a kind of an interesting example. Um, One of my guys, super dialed in flying. Okay, goes on a 3 day bender with the lads, and obviously too much alcohol, dehydration, starts peeing blood, and it's like, is that the testosterone? No, it's not the testosterone. But if you think about what the testosterone is doing, it's giving you a level of consistency in your life. So then you have to apply that consistency to everything else in your life. So
Mm.
if you think about, again, if you're ill, now what happens to your testosterone level? Well, your testosterone level drops because what's it going to be doing? It's going to be obviously helping facilitate fighting infections and blah blah blah. But you're less likely to go out and go for a 5K run because you're lacking testosterone, lacking dopamine, so you're less inclined to go and earn your reward. So the real negative really is the fact that you're always dialed up to 10 on the amplifier. If it's spinal tap reference, you're always dialed up to 11. It's because it's one louder, isn't it? But
Mm.
you're always primed. And again, it's having that considered things like you can't go on blitz for 3 days. If you're ill, rest.
Yeah.
Take a step back and rest because you're always feeling like you should be doing something. And that's positive 99 times out of 100. But that one time out of 100, it's not good. I mean, I was ill. I had an operation in mid-December, and the professor said to me, "She said, don't Rob, just don't exercise for 2 weeks." And I said, "I can't." I said, "All right, give it a week." And so after a week, I went back to the gym, and I blitzed it to the point of I can't do any more. I feel ill. It's like so I did that every day.
Mm.
And it's like it was utterly stupid. But I mean, I thought, well, I'm exercising, but I'm not really killing myself, so I'm all right. And then I'm doing all the things. And then ultimately, I crashed, and I got that horrible cough that lasts 4 weeks. and I felt terrible, which meant I couldn't train for 4 weeks. And I was like, "Well, you did that to yourself, mate." And it's
Yeah.
like that because again, I'm dialed up to 10 all the time. So it's just understanding your limitations. And again, as human beings, we're not very good at understanding our limitations. And low testosterone, you realize your limitations because you
Yeah.
do something, but you don't get the reward that you're after. Um, from an NHS perspective, it's raised hematocrit. So again, red blood cells create an increase in testosterone increases erythropoiesis, which increases red blood cell production, which means that the viscosity of your blood can increase to mean that it's stodgy blood, which means the heart's going, "What are you doing?" Which again is why you have to monitor your levels, which is why these guys are under active care, because it's not just here's the testosterone, go away. It's like,
Mm.
right, let's make sure that this is being done properly and safely. Because then what's the byproduct of that? It's you raise blood pressure. We know the consequences of raised blood pressure over time. We know the consequences of degraded lipid profiles. We know the consequences of the brain with that high testosterone or the erratic testosterone and its relationship with dopamine. We need that stability, and that needs to be monitored.
Yeah. And I suppose that's the difference, isn't it, between what you're doing, treating people and under a clinical setting versus these people just jumping on testosterone for whatever reason they want to get those 19-inch arms.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And some of the risks that come out of that, and obviously going too far without keeping up that regular check, that's where those serious risks really come in. And we've seen plenty of people on gear die way too young because of some of those things, right?
Yeah, I mean, the first year is pretty intensive. Um, Once you're super stable, and we've indoctrinated you enough to you go to sleep going, "Oh, you're a warder, you're a warder, you're a warder." we do them to see those guys once a year because they have that insight and awareness of what they need to be doing, and they're doing it. And it's like, well, okay, we don't have to be as intensive, but you know that we're always here. Again, you will never left your own devices. If you need our support, you've got our support. But again, it goes back to that personal accountability and responsibility. Once you accept that, you take that on board and you run with it. You don't need to see me every 6 months. You see me once a year and go, "Everything's wicked, doc." Living life, and that's ultimately
Yeah,
what we want you to do. We want you to get on with life and not
yeah,
focus on testosterone replacement therapy, not focus on your estrogen levels. And, "Oh, do you think I should get it?" No, just get on with life.
yeah,
Leave the medicine to us. We've done this thousands of times. You don't need to worry about it.
yeah. And yeah, I suppose it's like that, what we were talking about earlier, and making TRT your identity. You don't need to do that. You just need to keep living your life, control what you can control, to be stoic about it,
Yeah, no.
and then just keep going. Um, in terms of stories from your clinic, from your experience, I know you've sort of sprinkled us with a few like little examples of conversations with people. Are there any real success stories that come to mind for you from people you've treated? Obviously, without going into too many details.
Um, Listen, it's all about leading your best life, and I think I'm very proud and humbled to say that we've positively impacted 4,000 plus patients to improve their physical, psychological well-being to go lead life. Um, it's the guys that say that they were suicidal prior to TRT. Um,
Mm,
but yeah, it's heartbreaking that these guys feel that low. I mean, we all have low moments, obviously, and you can have feelings of despair. But hopefully, your mindset, which is as a consequence of your physiology and psychology being looked at, is positive, stoic enough to say, right, okay, no, fuck, let's go. Um, I think there are way too many people who have committed suicide, and it's the foundation is testosterone.
yeah.
It, I can't even tell you how many people have said to me, "Yeah, that video doc about you talking about suicide, that was me," and I wouldn't have clicked. Again, normal man conversation. The mask is up. There's a little bit of vulnerability that they display, enough for me to take them seriously about the fact their mood's low, but they're not going to say what they want to say or what they should say,
Yeah.
because again, our masks are always up, and I think sometimes unveiling that mask is uh, it's it's crazy listening. And again, it goes back to true strength comes from vulnerability.
Yeah, it's a topic that I speak about quite a lot with suicide stuff. I've been volunteering as a Samaritan's listener as well in my spare time. So it's something that I care a lot about. And talking to experts about, especially talking about men, how we get men to talk and stuff like that, and how we men being around other men, being in nature, being active with each other, but also I suppose that looking at your physical stuff, looking at your blood work, is there anything in there that might be impacting it? Is an angle I've not really thought about before. So it's really interesting to hear that and to it's opened my mind a bit more to that being a potential cause as well.
Listen,
Um,
it is the key because you can't outthink your physiology. I mean, going back to sort of like how do we get men to talk? You know, obviously you're well versed in what we should be doing, but you know, it's I'm chatting to one of my mates, Nick Goldsmith, is uh, ex-military, and it's like we're talking about the value of sitting around the campfire, having a chat, just
yeah,
dudes. You know, it doesn't have to be deep; it just has to be a real conversation. And I think, you know, the hesitation and reservation that a lot of guys have with these male support groups is fucking what. So I've got to just bare my soul to you. Whereas if we just have a chat around a campfire, or say you do a round of golf with your mate and you're doing it every weekend, or you're hiking up Penny Fan or you're hiking up Snowdon, and you just have those sort of comfortable silences where you do a little bit of reflection and you might say something that just sparks a conversation. And I think it goes back to Bill Hicks,
mm.
Lord, my Lord and Savior. We're, all matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibrating hum. We are one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There is no such thing as death, and we are the imagination of ourselves. And then it
Mm.
ends with, "Here's Tom with the weather," and it's like, yeah, I think that's it. And I think if we had the ability to share our problems, sharing is caring. But it's a difficult thing for a man to do it in this world of
Yeah,
he has to be everything to everybody, and he doesn't feel listened to because he has to be the strong one. But sometimes men need to be vulnerable,
yeah,
and displaying that vulnerability to your mates can be a challenge in society when we all have to aspire to be like that person, that person, that person. So I think more and more of these guys coming out, my special forces guys, that are saying, I felt like shit, and it's like, right, what did I do about it? So again, it goes back to that labeling thing. We're not going to label you as low testosterone. We're going to say, right, okay, there's the testosterone to get you back to normal. Now, fucking go and earn your reward, and
yeah.
spread the word and talk and be a better human being, as opposed to,
Mm.
oh no, the fear of being judged. It's like it's scary. But again, social media. It's
Yeah,
that we live in a massive community, but it's not a
yeah,
community, is it? It's too many people. We're all anonymous in our community,
yeah,
and that's scary.
yeah. And we think about how what we do is going to be viewed by other people who we don't even know and we may not even like. And it's a really interesting thing that we've got to now where our first thought is, well, I can't do that because people think I'm weird or like starting a podcast, I suppose, is it's putting yourself out on the internet to try and have these conversations and help other people. But some people are like, that's just weird. Like, why would you do that? But
It's the fear of
whatever.
being judged, isn't it? And again, as a human being, you're pre-programmed to look to the negative. So I'll do a video, and somebody on lots of lovely positive comments. Oh, thanks, Doc. It's like, build my ego. But you get one wanky comment, and you're just going to go, right, right. I am going to fight my corner, and I'm going to tell you why that wanky comment is not wanky. And I was like, and you're sort of going, I don't care. I don't know you, and I'm never going to know you. you probably it's like road rage, isn't it? Somebody's going, oh. You go, listen, you're probably having a worse day than I am. So
Yep.
you go forth, but it's there on the internet going, well, that's there forever now, so I'm going to have to reply to that because I'm I'm gonna have to fight my corner. And you get enter into this stupid argument with somebody that you don't give a shit about, and you're there going, I'm gonna come up with a witty last comment, just to end just to win. And it's like,
Yeah.
why am I doing this? But the ego gets involved, and again, I think the social media problem is the fact that it's not an effective form of communication in the vast majority of situations. And again, props to you for putting out a podcast, but it's like I think Joe Rogan says never read the comments.
Yeah, 100%.
But you
I
get
mean, yeah, you just get drawn in, don't you? Like you say, like I did one recently where someone sort of misunderstood exactly what I was saying, and then I replied to try and clarify it, and then they came back with something else, and then I'm like clarifying, and then they just went to a completely different attack, and I was like, you're not even trying to understand. So at that point, I was like, I'm just going to leave it. But
and then it ends with the insult.
yeah, yeah. As soon as you've insulted someone, you've lost it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Listen, that's so true. It's like, again, I've had some stupid arguments on the internet, and then when it resorts to like profanity and you're whatever, it's just like, you've lost. Yes,
yeah,
yes, I did. I
yeah,
did win. I did win. My ego's secure. My super ego is secure. I'm happy.
yeah.
It's like,
My ego will sleep well tonight.
yeah, yes,
um, Robert, thanks so much for today. I want to sort of bring it into a close. So, one of the things I like to do at the end of an episode is it comes from when I used to listen to a lot of podcasts before starting this one. I used to go away and start conversations around what I'd been listening to. So, what I like to do is ask my guests to leave a question for the listener. So, a question that they can go away to their friend, family member, a stranger, and start a conversation. What question would you have them ask?
um, it's a question I would like them to ask themselves. How good could you be if you put the effort in?
I like that. Perfect. That's a great question. So, yeah, listeners, let us know the answer. Robert, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been wonderful. I've learned a lot, and hopefully, everyone listening has too. If people want to follow you online on social media, stay up to date with what you're doing, where can they do that?
We're just doing a social media blast again to separate us from the jabs. I've got an Instagram, Dr. Robert Stevens, but we have got a brand new The Men's Health Clinic Instagram page that's going to be way more professional than my philosophy quotes and ice bars and stories with my dogs. So yeah, the men's health that we're building that up over the next few weeks, and that's going to be utterly epic with again lots of cool stuff with my ex special forces guys, and inspirational stories. Again, separating as I'll quote Nathan from The Jerk, the shit from the shine owner. And again, it's
Mm,
just going to deliver that level of realism that hopefully people will appreciate, and I think what people need.
yeah. Sounds awesome. I'm excited to see where it goes, and I'll be watching along. So, if you have enjoyed this episode, you the listener, please do share it with someone who you think will find some value from it. Even just sharing it with one person really helps us reach new people. If you're not already following the show where you're listening to this, please do just press follow. Again, it helps us reach new people. And on Instagram, it's at Lonely Chapter Podcast. And lastly, from me, thank you for listening and stay curious.